What if I told you that one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation does not leave bruises? What if the most damaging abuse is the one that makes you question your own mind? Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, even though you were sure you were right just minutes before? Have you ever heard someone say, "You're overreacting. That never happened. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things." And for a second, you believe them. That is gaslighting. Gaslighting is not just lying. It is not just manipulation. It is psychological warfare against your perception of reality. And here's the terrifying part. It works. Today, we are diving deep into the psychology of gaslighting. We will explore how it rewires your brain, why intelligent people fall for it, what major psychologists have discovered about it, and how you can protect yourself before your sense of reality starts slipping away. Because gaslighting does not just change what you think, it changes who you believe you are. What is gaslighting? The term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her sanity by subtly dimming the gaslights and denying that anything has changed. The goal was not just to lie. The goal was to make her doubt her perception. Modern psychology defines gaslighting as a form of emotional abuse where a person deliberately manipulates someone into questioning their memory, perception, or sanity. Dr. Robin Stern, author of The Gaslight Effect, describes gaslighting as a gradual erosion of self-trust. It does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly. It happens strategically. It happens repeatedly. And that repetition is what changes the brain. How gaslighting actually works. Gaslighting follows a predictable pattern. First, the manipulator tells a small lie. When confronted, they deny it confidently. Then, they attack your credibility. Finally, they position themselves as the stable one. Over time, the victim stops trusting their memory and starts relying on the manipulator's version of reality. Dr. Jennifer Freyd, known for her work on betrayal trauma theory, explains that when someone depends emotionally or physically on another person, the brain sometimes suppresses awareness of abuse to preserve attachment. In simple terms, your brain may choose connection over truth. That is not weakness. That is survival wiring. Why smart people fall for gaslighting? There is a myth that only naive or insecure people fall for gaslighting. That is not true. Research in cognitive psychology shows that human memory is reconstructive, not photographic. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, one of the world's leading memory researchers, demonstrated through decades of studies that false memories can be implanted simply through suggestion. If memory itself is flexible, then repeated denial can distort it. Gaslighting exploits that weakness. Intelligent people are often more vulnerable because they assume rational dialogue will solve confusion. They assume logic will win. But gaslighting is not about logic. It is about power. The brain on gaslighting. Chronic gaslighting activates the stress response system. When someone repeatedly invalidates your perception, your amygdala becomes hyperactive. The amygdala is responsible for detecting threats. At the same time, chronic stress increases cortisol levels. High cortisol impairs the hippocampus, which is critical for memory consolidation. This means stress literally weakens your ability to trust your own memory. The more stressed you become, the less confident you feel. The less confident you feel, the more you rely on the manipulator. That is the psychological trap. Dr. Daniel Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, explains that relationships shape the brain's wiring. If someone consistently tells you that your emotional reactions are wrong, your neural circuits begin adapting to that message. Over time, self-doubt becomes automatic. Common gaslighting tactics. Gaslighting is rarely obvious. It hides in everyday phrases. "You're crazy. That never happened. You're making things up. You're too emotional. I was joking. You cannot take a joke." Each statement chips away at certainty. In romantic relationships, gaslighting often begins during the idealization phase. The manipulator creates intense connection. Then slowly, they introduce confusion. In workplaces, gaslighting may look like a boss denying instructions they clearly gave. In families, it may look like a parent dismissing childhood experiences. In politics and media, it may look like rewriting obvious facts. Gaslighting thrives where there is power imbalance. The emotional impact. Victims of gaslighting often describe a specific feeling. It feels like standing on unstable ground. You remember something clearly, but the person you trust insists it did not happen. You begin to question yourself. You replay conversations in your head. You analyze your tone. You doubt your memory. Eventually, you apologize for things that were never your fault. Dr. Stephanie Sarkis, author of Gaslighting, Recognize Manipulative and Emotionally Abusive People, explains that long-term gaslighting can lead to anxiety, depression, and even symptoms similar to PTSD. The damage is not just confusion. The damage is identity erosion. When you cannot trust your perception, you cannot trust your decisions. When you cannot trust your decisions, you lose confidence. When you lose confidence, you lose autonomy. That is the real cost. Why gaslighters do it. Gaslighting is not always calculated evil. Sometimes it is, but often it is rooted in insecurity and control needs. Research on narcissistic personality traits shows that individuals high in narcissism struggle with shame regulation. Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, explains that extreme narcissism involves fragile self-esteem hidden behind superiority. When confronted, such individuals protect their ego by distorting reality. Gaslighting allows them to avoid accountability. If they can convince you that you are wrong, they never have to admit fault. Control becomes their emotional oxygen. Gaslighting versus normal conflict. Not every disagreement is gaslighting. Healthy conflict involves different perspectives. Gaslighting involves denial of objective reality. Healthy partners say, "I remember it differently." Gaslighters say, "That never happened, and you are crazy for thinking it did." Healthy conflict invites dialogue. Gaslighting shuts it down. The difference is respect for your perception. How to protect yourself. First, document events. Writing things down strengthens memory consolidation. Second, trust patterns, not promises. Gaslighting is repetitive. Third, observe how you feel after interactions. Do you feel heard or confused? Fourth, seek external perspective. Isolation fuels gaslighting. Research in social psychology shows that group validation stabilizes perception. If multiple trusted people confirm your experience, your confidence increases. Finally, strengthen self-trust intentionally. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy help rebuild internal validation. Mindfulness practices strengthen prefrontal cortex regulation, reducing emotional overwhelm. Healing is possible. The recovery journey. Recovery begins when you realize one thing. You are not crazy. Your confusion was engineered. Your self-doubt was conditioned. Your reality was distorted. And once you see it, the fog begins to lift. Dr. Brené Brown's research on shame shows that naming the experience reduces its power. When you say, "This is gaslighting," you reclaim authority. Rebuilding trust in yourself takes time, but the brain is plastic. Neuroplasticity means your mind can rewire. With safe relationships, therapy, journaling, and self-compassion, clarity returns. And when clarity returns, power returns. Powerful ending. Gaslighting does not start with screaming. It starts with subtle doubt. It starts with a small denial. It starts with, "You are imagining things." But here's the truth. Your perception matters. Your memory matters. Your emotions matter. And if someone consistently makes you feel small, confused, or unstable, that is not love. That is control. The most radical act of self-respect is trusting your own mind. So let me ask you something before you leave. Has there ever been a moment when you felt certain about something, but someone made you question it? And what would your life look like if you trusted yourself again? If this video helped you see something clearly, share it with someone who might need it, because awareness is protection. And once you understand the psychology of gaslighting, it loses its power over you. This is Minecraft Lab, and your mind is worth protecting.